my father found out that I was back in the States, and he was like, "Hey, why didn't you say, you had gotten out of the military?" Well, the problem was I didn't want to see him. I didn't want him to see what I had become. And I put these stems, these shroom heads in these crackers, and I ate them. And I ate a good, like a handful. Probably it was portioned for two people. And I'm just hearing everything, and it's just annoying. I'm just stressing out. I have a little, what's it called? Little, I don't have a closet in my ref. I put a bar in my bedroom as a closet, and it was pretty sturdy, and I had to wear tie, and I tied it around, and I held it in my hands, and I was planning on just hanging myself with that. And then I finally, I get on the phone with my dad.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Light It Up podcast. I'm your host, Wyatt Taylor. We have with us Rafael Alvarez.
Hey, guys.
And Jonathon Guerrero.
Hey, you.
So if you have not seen part one with Jonathon Guerrero, we have been going through his testimony and his redemption story. And if you have not seen part one, we will have a link in the description. Make sure you check that out before you check this one out. But we were discussing what the general theme of his testimony was, and he had mentioned that it was the prodigal son. So he just kind of a summary of his last testimony is he grew up and got kind of separated from his dad, from his father, and a lot of bitterness resided in him and grew in him from that. And so starting off from where we just ended, he had just turned 18 and he's just about to join the Marines. So Jonathon, why don't you go ahead and start right where we left off?
Awesome. Okay, first I want to say this. Everything with the last podcast, I'm not sugarcoating anything, If it's like, man, this guy's, well, yeah, I was not saved. I was messed up, If everything seems like, man, that's pretty much how it is. And I was blunt then, I'm gonna be blunt, straightforward. So other than that, so yeah, 18, and I knew it was easy. It was an easy decision to make. Our recruiter loved me because I really gave no problems. I was a healthy 18-year-old kid, and I got shipped off. At this point, it's like, it really is like, I want my inheritance and I want to bounce, I'm going to see the world. I'm going to do things, that like, I'm really like literally stepping away from my family, from my father, And the sad thing about this was my father was really proud of me, My mother and everything were really proud of me. At the end of the day, honestly, I didn't care at the time. I was just like, I want to go do my own thing. I'm gonna push myself to succeed and see if I can make something out of myself. But in all truth, I was running away from everything, thinking that the farther I can get away, the fresh start I can have, and really just really like just maybe things will get better. So my first year in, it's nothing but training, nothing. I'm really easily distracted. I graduate boot camp after 3 months, and phone's falling here. I graduate boot camp after 3 months, and it was an easy ride from there. It was nice to see my family, everyone proud of me. But I was still ready to just step into that journey. In this time frame, these 4 years is where I really got heavy into drinking. Going overseas and everything like that, being with the people that I was with. Firstly, I want to say this. Like, I have the utmost respect for the military and it's in the Marine Corps and the branches and serving my country is the biggest honor that I will ever have.
And that goes for all of us. We all everybody, JJ, Rafael,
Yeah.
and we all respect the military and their
Yeah.
sacrifice and what they've done for our country and for the freedom that we have because of them. So
Yeah.
sorry about that, but continue.
No, no, yeah, of course. I mean, like I said, what I'm sort of going to tell has nothing to do with it was my experience alone. It's what I went through, and has nothing to dictate of what the branches or what the military is. It's just unfortunately, I don't have the best or the worst stories to tell. But my time in, I developed a drinking habit. I got in. I will give you some of this for a full 2 years when I was overseas. Every single day, I would drink from Thursday to Saturday, and I black out drunk almost every weekend. I wake up and I'd be in my bed, and I'm like, wow, at least I made it back to the room somehow. And in this time, I was very distracted. Like, I literally lost the sense of my family, my friends, like, everyone back home. Like, I really just had no concern for them anymore. It was just me.
Almost
Um,
almost exactly like the prodigal son.
oh yes, like I got into the that party phase. I was in a foreign country. I was in jungles and places like where 1% Americans will only ever go to. I was living this life. That's the problem, is that people are like, "Oh, you're sitting, you're saying it's fun." It was fun. I had a blast. I was doing things like like that most people my age will never do in their lives. Most people any age will ever do in their lives. Seeing sunsets from the Philippines, from the jungles, from like just being in environments that and like I said, I'm in this place, and I tell people all the time where the problem is that I felt immortal. I felt untouchable, and nothing touched me in that time. There was no repercussions from any of my actions. And I took advantage of that. I took advantage of the drinking, of the partying, of the going out. Of this attitude that I built, and in that time, I built this this what's it called? This spirit of death developed in me. Where I stopped really caring about myself, even though I was like in the most tip top shape I've ever been in my life. This mentality of, I don't care what happens. If I die tomorrow, that's it. And I live like that. I lived like with no fear, with nothing, for 4 years. And I don't know if it's much really you want me to dig into in that time frame,
I
but
got one question.
tell me.
Can you hear me, Test? Okay. Um, so during that time, did has was God like any of your like was it any thought of him, or was there any people like that you seen were talking about God, or was it completely like there was like nothing that was there? You was just living life and that's it.
So God was there. I'll have a comment for that too. But in the very beginning in boot camp, there was a church that they had church service on Sundays, and I thought it was funny for me because it's like you want to go to church on Sundays, or do you want to be stuck with the drill instructors? And so I remember everyone would go to church Sunday, and the music was beautiful. The music was amazing. This camaraderie you built with all the other recruits at the time, and we had it was a place to be, and but they didn't really talk about sin. They kind of just talked about feeling good, and I didn't really recall this until later on, but I remember the chaplains and whatnot, they would always kind of motivate us, like we're gonna be warriors, we're gonna be men of God, we're gonna be fighting for him, but it was never sin was not a topic in any real church, well, any real church, but any church I kind of had touched in or stepped into at the time really didn't have that that preaching of sin. It didn't have, it was always just a feel good environment, you know. Um, God was he was there. What got easier? It got easier to block him out though. it got easier to forget about him. Well, especially when I was doing the drinking, when I was doing the things like at first it started with like, oh man, like I know this is a sin. I know this is a problem. I know I shouldn't be doing this until to a point where I didn't like I said, didn't hesitate. Like it just was second nature to pick up a bottle, to drink alcohol, to do other things of perversion. Of like it didn't affect me anymore. I had no conviction. There was no wall. That wall was demolished. There was no real like, oh, I feel like it hurt. Yeah, it just by my second year in, it was wiped clean. I didn't have that. I didn't have that fear of God anymore. I and but I never stopped believing in him. I never, I wasn't trying to fight the idea of him. It just I didn't feel that conviction anymore. And but like I remember there was certain times where I would come close to a certain situation and I would tell myself, I would pray, I'd be like, oh man, like God, get me out of this. Like that was the only time when I was afraid to die. That's when it would be like, oh God, I believe in you, like But other than that, it was like, yeah, like I said, when I was doing the things like sin, I was able. It was so easy to block it out. It was so easy to get over that.
So, just a picture of how um, into or how addicted to drinking Jonathan was. I remember he told this at a youth rally once. He said, I believe it was morning PT when you're on a run, right?
Yeah.
You go on a run. He said, he had like a water backpack or something.
Yeah,
And
like it's called a Camelback.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, the
what was the
Camelback
story?
story. I mean that's Camelback's. This story is like it's. I want to say this happened. Obviously, this happened more than anyone wants ever to happen. That's the problem with it. I stopped with this story, but um, in the mornings at 5 a.m. Marines are crazy. We wake up at 4:45 we wake up at 4 in the morning to be ready information at 4:45 so we can start running at 5 in the morning. So
Dang.
yeah. But at the time, I was just telling someone this story, but so when it comes to we're all about uniformity. Like if someone's wearing a white sock and doesn't have another sock on the other foot, everyone's got to take that sock off. Everyone goes sockless. So you don't want to be that person who doesn't show up with that water source. Because then you're gonna get in trouble. Like you're gonna no one gets to wear the Camelback. Um, and so I was looking, just kind of like just frantically looking for that Camelback, and I couldn't find it. And I remember like my roommate. I was like, okay, let me grab this, guys. Like it was just kind of out there, and I got down to formation, had it on, felt good. Go run through my. I mean, granted, the problem was that I was already hungover too. It wasn't like I was perfectly sober at the time to begin with. I was just, I was so. This was such a routine for me that it really didn't phase me that much until during that running of the 5K. This is a 3 mile run that I had to do, and I can't really be like, I don't want to. No, it's like I have to do, to run these 3 miles. I think like halfway, I'm getting parched. So I grab there's like it goes over your shoulder and there's a tube in that, and I stick it into my mouth and I want to get some water, and when I do that, immediately, as soon as like whatever liquid content was in it, I spit it out. Because it just happened to be alcohol. It was liquor. This guy, and I was like, I was so dehydrated that I just kept drinking just for the sake of like, just to clear my throat of any dryness or my lips of anything like that, But at the time, I wasn't like I was all frustrated. It was like, yeah, this is my life, Like that's how bad it was. It was just like there wasn't like, oh man, I need to like stop or quit. No, it was just like I remember getting back to my room. I told my roommate, hey, like, bro, like next time, like, I mean, warn someone or but then I remember at the time thinking to myself, like, that was a good idea, It's, but, it just,
Wow.
yeah, it was just, it was a very, but even then, that's just a fraction, just a fraction of what, and then Granted, I'm only 20 years. I'm only 20, 21 years old. And 20 is a legal drinking age in Japan. So
And
I'm
you were in Japan.
yeah, I was in Japan,
Okay.
and I'm young. I'm 20 years old. I'm not 25, 26. I'm 20 years old, and thinking I'm a grown man. Like just going through that. Yeah. So that's that story. Yeah. But I do tell it. Just because it gives you a sense of like, there's like the lack of like careness, or just that whole conviction was just totally gone. But yeah, but and then was there
So,
any question? Go ahead.
question. So, how long is you say you're 28? How long were you in the military for?
So for 4 years, from 2013 to 2017. So
So,
from from, from 18 to
24.
23. Yeah, basically.
So
Okay.
so so do you want to so what year did you get saved?
So I got saved 2021. So
Okay.
in order, we'll get
Well,
to
I was just asking because I was gonna ask like what do you want? Because obvious because then that means you were there was a period of time where you were living in sin,
yeah.
correct? So because I was gonna say let's move on from the military and start
Okay.
talking about
So I got out. I got out basically. I got out 2017. The thing was funny is my father didn't know that I was out of the military until a year later. I really didn't. I didn't make an effort to really push. I had knew that I was coming back into the world totally full of sin, totally full of just, and I had nothing. I thought this guy at the time had nothing, didn't want anything to do with me, and for those 4 years afterwards, I carried on with the same mindset, with the same, mouth, the same mentality, the same drinking habits. The thing was, I was just wasn't in the military anymore. And from 2017 to basically 2020, in that time frame, I just fell into this, that bitterness just develops and grows and grows and grows. To give you some context later, you know, I got out with not with some issues, but with this very dark mentality, this very dark mental state. And I remember telling myself, just, I'll never put myself in a situation where I'm going to kill myself or suicide. I'm strong enough to fight that. I'm so during this time, I'm just trying to live my life. Still drinking. I think I pick up smoking at the time too. I really, really, get invested into all that with the different kind of liquors. The problem is that my father now knew that I was back home, and every so often, yeah, he misses his son. He would call me and invite me out to church. This is when I became good at excuses. You know, I would start saying, I would just tell him what he wanted to hear. What it was easier for me to tell him, and that was just, those 4 years. The first year, my dad didn't know I was back home until a year after I got back. You know, and then the remaining time, I just, like I said, I kept the same mentality, kept the same bitterness, the same hate. This problem now is I had this shame, this disappointment over me.
okay.
My father found out that I was back in the States, and he was like, "Hey, why didn't you say, you had gotten out of the military?" Well, the problem was I didn't want to see him. I didn't want him to see what I had become, because
Mm,
all I could think was that this guy was going to be just disappointed in me. And I'm telling you, I had that fear still. Still, when I was younger, my dad would yell at me. He would tell me when I was wrong. I got spanked, like most normal kids, like, and I held on to that fear where I'm like, I was always messing up. I was always being spanked, so I'm always doing something wrong. And so there was never pleasing that anything I could do. So now coming back from the military and becoming what I had become, like he's gonna see me and just be disappointed. So I literally I would hide from him. I would You can either ignore his calls or answer and kind of tell him, like, making any excuse that I could possibly make with, you know, oh, I worked that day. I purposely worked on Sundays, so I had that excuse. So I had that excuse saying I can't go to church on Sunday because I work Sundays. Sorry. I literally took up like an offer, um, like just threw my name out there. I'll work Sundays if we need to, just so I can have that leverage.
So, um, I had so first of all, that's just it's crazy because that's another point in this story of the prodigal
Yeah.
son. I kind of close, maybe close to the point, or just kind of similar to the point of when he's he's working a job feeding the pigs because his inheritance is lost. He's spent all of it, and he says, like, I have sinned against heaven and I've sinned against my father. And
Yeah.
he says, like, I can't go back to my father as a son. I'm going to ask him to be as one of his servants because his servants are living better than I am. So although it is a different situation, it's still, you were still just at a low point, and you just kind of pushed your dad off. And really, this goes to show you that um, you don't know what that friend or that person you're trying to invite to church, what they, might be going through, because you purposely didn't want to go to church because of the guilt you had.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure his persistence at some point kind of helped you make that decision, which we'll get into later. But you never know the impact we can have on someone's soul. But one of the questions I had was guilt and condemnation. I know a lot of church kids who have backslid, and they're grown up now, and some of them even pastors, but they always talk about how hard it is to believe that God still loves them.
Exactly.
So did you deal with that, and how was that thought process?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so we'll jump forward into COVID,
Okay.
Before COVID, it was easy to be distracted. It was easy to still revel in that sin and be comforted by somehow. Now COVID's happening. Now everything is being shut down, and and no one's allowed to leave. So, talking about the alcohol, and I can tell you the dates, and I told people, and I'm no shame about it, from 2020 April 5th to 2021 April 9th, I was drinking every single day. I was going to work still. I'm not going to say what I was drinking, but I was drinking almost about 20 to 30% alcohol content a day.
Wow.
If you really don't get an understanding of that, where, most beer itself has 6 or up to 9% alcohol, and just one single beer, where at the end of the day, for one day, I was drinking about 30% alcohol content, and on the weekends, if not more, I had nothing to do. I still had a job, fortunately, I was blessed with an amazing job at the time that I'll get into that later. But to make time for nothing, I would just do that. And on the weekends, it was funny because I was doing the same thing. At the time I was all into I had no other hobbies, other than drawing. And I think I bought like a PC just so I could play video games and whatnot, just so like I said, I was never interested in video games as a kid. It was just, there was nothing to do, and my money had nowhere to go. So I just remember buying this PC, and there was times where I didn't want to do that. And like you were saying about that condemnation, that rejection, sometimes I would lay in my bed, and it'd be like, maybe I wake up around 12 in the afternoon. I would lay in my bed from 12 to from almost 6 p.m. just daydreaming about a life if that I was saved, and
Wow.
in a life that, what if I had went to church, and I would just sit there. I remember just weekends would go by like that, and I really thought God was gone, like he this is when that anger coming, like what you say, like I'm like, there's not a single like remnants of him in my room, like where I live. And I lived in that room, man. You become filthy. I became this, I became my sin, you know, like I it was like it enveloped me, I had my coworkers could see it, you know, and, and like I mentioned earlier, when I first got 2017, now it's 2020, right? I told myself I wasn't going to ever get to the point where I thought I would kill myself. The problem was what I was doing with my life was killing myself. When I would drink and when I would pull myself away further from my dad, from God, like I was killing myself. What I was doing to my body.
Note: the next story includes references to hallucinations and drug abuse. If you do not want to hear this story, skip to 55 minutes and 16 seconds. So, I've heard the infamous magic mushroom story. So,
Magic mushrooms.
and this was a big turning point in your life.
Oh yeah.
So why don't you explain that and explain what happened?
Okay. So yeah. So I think a year has passed, and I have already been drinking almost every single day. Not even almost. I was drinking every single day. You know, like I gave those specific dates for a reason because it was nonstop. After telling coworkers that I wasn't drinking on the weekdays, I was lying to them. There was a point though where I'm like, I really need to stop. I need to get sober. I need to I was having suicidal thoughts, by the end of this year. And it was starting to really scare me because that's all I could think about was dying. Would I be better off? Would the world be like? Would my parents be better off if they weren't?
Wow.
If I wasn't just not in the picture anymore, And so I got into this whole cleansing thing where I was supposed to stop drinking for 75 days and whatnot, and I stopped drinking. I really did. I mean, trust me. I was afraid that I was gonna start like scratching myself and like get but it was easy. The problem was it didn't do anything for me just because I stopped drinking. If anything, the drinking has helped because it stupefied me. It made me dumb. It made me forget. It made me stop thinking. Now that I'm like sober, the thinking is there and it's just 10 times fold. And I'm like, what do I do? And so it goes to the shrooms. I had a friend that I had done this a couple of times too. It's not like this is the first time. Oh, this is why you had that experience. No, I mean I wasn't experienced. I wasn't an expert, but I had done these before. So a friend gives me the shrooms one day. This is what is it? April. How many months are in April? 29 or 30?
I think there's 30. Let me check.
Hey, y'all need to go back to school.
Trust me. I mean,
Well, what hasn't done that?
February went by so fast because it was a short month. But
yeah, 30.
30. Okay, this is April 30th, 2021. Okay. My friend gives me this pack of shrooms, and what I didn't know was just the amount of dosage. I really didn't care at the time. So you want this in detail. So I get home. It's around 10 o'clock. It's around 10 o'clock in the afternoon. So it seems like a good time, to finally do this. I put a movie on. I think, like I said, I've done this a couple times. So I'm like, I already know what I'm going to do. I know how I'm going to set myself up, and so I take, you're supposed to eat these, whatever. You're supposed to digest them somehow. You can do it in tea. You can do it in whatever. I literally, the way I do it, I get like a Lunchable, and I put these stems, these shroom heads, in these crackers, and I ate them. And I ate a good like a handful, which probably is the stupidest.
I remember my dad saying that even one will make you go insane, and
Yeah,
you said you ate a lot, and
yeah. Like I think I ate probably it was portioned for 2 people, and the thing was I just didn't care. I had just not didn't care. So I'm all getting all excited. I'm like ready to to go in. And so it's funny because a lot of people have not heard the full story of this. And I think I want to start by saying this. Like, what I'm going to tell you about this, none of this is comforting. None of this is funny. Like, the rest of the story is going to be, I'm going to tell you in detail, Don't expect, So I take these shrooms. They take about 30 or so minutes to hit me, In that time, I start seeing shapes, and I'm like, oh, here it is. It's coming, I can't wait, And then all of a sudden, I start hearing noises, and they start getting real loud. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I wanted this to stop. Like, it's a little annoying, And I remember I knew something was up because I remember looking into the hallway from where my room was at. And I could see my brother going back and forth, pacing back and forth. And I called to him, and he wouldn't respond to me. And then but it was so weird because I couldn't think. I'm like, why is this person just shooting back and forth? And I closed my door because I just don't want to see anything. I was like, okay, I'm close my door. And I'm in this room, and I'm trying to watch this movie. And like, the sounds start getting, and I have headphones on. I'm trying to watch movies. The sounds get just a little too loud. So I take them off. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like this is uncomfortable. Like, this is okay. So I'm like, I try to go on YouTube, and I try to look up a happy song. There's a song on YouTube that I do not listen to anymore because, and it's just a simple beat, and I do not listen because it just reminds me of that day. But I put the song on, and it's pathetic because the song comes on, it's all chirpy, it's all happy, and I try dancing to it. I try like just moving and having a good time, and I can see that whatever's going on around me is being affected by my mood, I'm like, okay, if I stay happy, I'll be good. I'll be good. I'll be good. What if I can't do this all day? Oh man, I mean, am I supposed to keep this up for how long is this gonna last for? I start panicking. And I'm like, okay, I need to really, I need to figure this out. I need to relax. And I'm panicking. I'm just there. I'm on my bed now, and I'm just like, okay, I'm looking at things, and things start moving, and it's not like, oh, you look at something that's like a kaleidoscope. You look at this kaleidoscope, right? And you can change it, and the colors change. So I have that little effect over my eyes, and I'm just hearing everything, and it's just annoying. I'm just stressing out, and I'm like, I want this to stop. I need this to stop before it gets worse. Like, it just started, and I'm already panicking, and I'm like, this is way different than what I've done before. And then this voice creeps into my head, and it's not my voice. It's my voice, but it's like if I was mimicking and trying to do a demonic voice. And it's just like, Jonathan, you're worthless. Like, you are pathetic. And he starts putting me down. And I'm like, what is going on? Why am I thinking this? Like, but I have no control over his voice. And I'm like, okay, now I really got to get, this needs to, I'm hearing voices now. Like, this needs to stop. So I go and I open my bathroom, and I'm desperate to get this out of me. And I'm thinking that, okay, if I throw this up, this will get out of my system, So I start I'm sitting in front of a toilet, this disgusting toilet, and I'm trying to gag myself so I can throw this up. At the time, though, I had nosebleed problems. I had just went on this crazy sober thing for 30 days. My immune system, everything's just whacked out. I have bad allergies, and I try to gag myself, and I sneeze, and my nose starts bleeding. And as soon as I saw that blood, it was game over. Whatever it took over, it used that, it just exploited it. Like, the problem with shrooms is it's not like a dream. It's not like you wake up from a dream and you're like, wow, that was a weird dream. No, this stuff is it is physically altering what you see, everything around you, you know. And that blood was all over me, and it just wouldn't stop. It was pouring up, and it filled the toilet. And I tried to, I'm like, what is going on? I'm losing it. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, Jonathan, stop. Two things are happening right now. One, you know you're on something. You know you're on shroom. So you're hallucinating. Two, the hallucination is taking over what's actually happening. So if you are really bleeding this much, it is a concern. The last thing I want to do is bleed out to death because of my nosebleed, like, because I had a hemorrhage or something in my brain or whatever. So either I'm going to bleed out in this bathroom or I'm going to try to tell someone something's wrong with me, because I don't know if I'm hallucinating the blood or if it's happening. So I said, if I can put someone, like, if I can get someone other than myself to tell me whether or not this is happening, I'll be good. So what I do is I slowly walk up and I start moving out of the bathroom. So there's a bathroom in my room. When I do that, that's when all the walls around me, all the paint, whatever, starts to fall off of them, and it just reveals this dark, this disgusting, like, black, like, wall, like if it was all this mold or whatever underneath the paint, and it's revealed. And as I'm walking into my room, it's like following me, like if it's just wherever I go, that ooze or whatever, like the black, that mold just infests over everything. And I'm just like, just keep walking, like, just go, your house, you're hallucinating, Jonathan, just keep going, you're good. Like, I'm really walking with my hands on the wall to make sure I'm guiding myself correctly. And I get into my parents' room. My mom is there, and I wake my mom up. And as I'm doing this, I just see all that infestation just develop everything, just take a hold of everything. But it didn't take over my mom, so I told myself, okay, I'm gonna use my mom as my reality check. She still looks normal, so I'm not going to trip. She's still there. I wake her up and she's like, Jonathan, what are you doing? I'm like, Mom, am I bleeding? And she's like, what? Like, she's like, freaks out, and she's like, you have blood all over you. And I'm like, okay, good. So I was having a bloody nose. So she goes and she's like, sit in this chair. And she's like, I'll be right back. And she goes, leaves. And I'm there in the chair. And all this black, that whatever, that gunk, whatever you want to call it, that mold, begins to just develop the chair. And I'm just sitting in this. And I'm just surrounded by this disgusting stuff on the wall. Like, you can't see any form of what was that room anymore. And I'm just waiting there for my mom, and I'm like, she better hurry up because I do not like what I'm seeing. And what felt like was like she was gone for like maybe 2 minutes, felt like a 30-minute wait for me. So I get up and I go over there. And she's in the bathroom. She's like, what are you doing? Like, she's like, go clean yourself. Like, and she's telling me I have blood on my hands. And I look, and there's blood on my hands. This is where it takes off from here. So I go and I wash the blood off my hands. I'm just there, like, okay, getting it off, making sure, like, and I'm done. No blood on my hands. And I turn around and I go to walk out the bathroom. My mom grabs me and pushes me back in the bathroom. And she's like, what are you doing? Clean the blood off your hands. I look back at my hands and they're covered in blood again. And I'm like, okay, I'm hallucinating. I must not have used anyone. I'm like trying to just reality check myself. So I go back, put my hands under the water, wash the bloods off my hands, see it coming off my hands, turn back around. My mom grabs me again and pushes me into the bathroom. Jonathan, wash the blood off of your hands. And again, I look at my hands and there's blood all over them. This third time when I looked at my hands, the blood that was on my hands started to come down and started to fall into the sink, and blood started just to fill the sink and fill the walls. Mind you guys, I'm on something, okay? Not like, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I'm standing still. And my mom is like, Jonathan, wash the blood off your hand. She has no idea that I'm on a psychedelic, that I'm just going through this. And she's like, Jonathan, She pushes me and she starts washing my hands, and I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry. She's like, what are you sorry for? She's like, I told her I'm on a psychedelic. Like I'm hallucinating. I think I'm hallucinating right now. And she's like, what's a psychedelic? I'm like, it's a drug. Like, you see, like, and like all I could say was I'm sorry. Like, and she pushes me back into the bathroom. Not like, because she's like, what am I talking about? And she starts washing my hands for me. And I look in the mirror, and her voice changes. And she's looking, and I can't look at her, and I just, this coldness, this hit my spine. Like, I'm like, where am I? Like, am I home? And for some reason that popped into my head, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I see my mom, and she's washing my hands, and she looks in the mirror, and she's just like, this voice came over her, and she's talking in this weird pitch, and she's like, you're such a disappointment. Like, I can't believe you're my son. While she's washing my hands, like, I raised you like this. I raised someone like you. Like, you're pathetic, Jonathan. Like, and I'm just there, like, I'm sorry, Mom. Like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I'm at. She's like, you know where you're at. You know what this is. Stop lying to yourself. While she's washing my hands. Like, you can't do anything on your own. You've never been able to do anything on your own. And I'm just like, out of everyone that you want to hear this from, this person I tried to make at the time that I was going through this, my comfort, my reality check, is now telling me these things, Let it be known that she didn't tell me any of this. She didn't. She was like, I was telling you, Jonathan, like, she had told me that, oh, like, Jonathan, I was like, why'd you take that for? Like, you shouldn't be doing that, And that was it. But for some reason, what I was hearing was this demonic voice telling me all these things. And it was like, and I couldn't even look at her. I was just looking at her reflection, and she was telling me all these things. And that one person, my mom, this hope that I put everything into, was telling me these things. And that's when I lost it. I think my mind had broke right there. She leaves me alone, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, where am I? And this voice came back. It's like, you know exactly where you are. I'm like, what do you mean? Where, like, what? And I start panicking. I'm like, where am I? And I go back into my room, and I can see myself on the bed. And I'm like, I'm like, what's going on? Like, why am I in the bed, but I'm here? And the voice is like, it's like, what do you think this is? Like, and the voice was like I knew what the word was, and I'm like, but there's no way I should be seen. Like, I should be on the bed. I'm right here. It's like, no, you're not. And then the voice was like, say it. Like, tell me, like, where are you? Say it. You know where you're at. And I said it. I'm like, I'm in hell. And the voice was like, well, there you go. Like, and then I started arguing. I'm like, no, I can't be in hell. Like, that's not how this works, right? Like, I'm supposed to, like, go through this whole door thing, this whole judgment, Like, now all of a sudden I'm bringing God into the picture now, right? And the voice was like, what are you talking about? Why would you go through that? Like, you really think you deserve to be in heaven? And I'm like, no, but I thought I'm supposed to see God. I'm not. And it's like, Jonathan, you know exactly where you deserve to be. And I was like, but why am I here? Why am I in my room? Why am I? And it's like, don't you get it? Like, this is your hell. Like, this place you hate the most. You and all the places for you to die, thinking that you were going to do something one day, thinking that you were going to be someone. And look how pathetic you look. Why would I need to put you anywhere else? And I remember sitting there. I remember like myself walking to the bed and sitting in the bed, and I looked, and I was no longer there. And I was sitting there, but I'm like, I'm not in hell. I can't be in hell. Like, this is not right. And it's like, and the voice was like, I'm arguing with this voice, and I'm like, there's no. It's like, Jonathan, like, where do you deserve to be when you die? And I'm like, in hell. And it's like, so why? Why do you think you like? Why are you so confused? Why are you arguing with this? I'm like, because this isn't right. The funny thing, 3 days before this had happened, on Wednesday, my dad had called me, and he invited me to Youth on Fire, and I gave the same excuse. Oh, Dad, I work Sundays. Fridays I might be busy. I might be doing something. Friday. This was Friday. This is what I was doing Friday. This is the Thursday before Friday, and I just gave him an excuse. I told him when he wanted to hear. Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll go if I'm not busy. And so now back, I'm in this place, and I remember that conversation, and you know, and I'm like, and the voice was like, yeah, like all you had to do was go to church, you know. And like, but it's not time. Like I'm not. I mean, I still had time. It's one more day until Friday. And the voice was like, you already made your decision. You knew you weren't gonna go. Why are you kidding yourself? Why are you pretending like you were going to have a change of heart? Like you are the same person. And I just was sitting there and I'm like, no way, no, like this is not how. And it's like, and the voice was like, Jonathan, like you've been in hell for the last 4 years. You have not like you have not done anything. I've put you exactly where I wanted you to be. All that's been happening to you is you just been decaying, sitting and doing nothing with your life. And this is what you're going to spend for the rest of your life, for eternity. And the funny thing was, as I was trying to make light of the situation, right? I'm like, whoa, you live, I'm a devil. Okay, whoever I'm talking to, like, I'm in hell, right? I can go and get some water. So I go to my kitchen. We have a little water dispenser. Put water in there, and I try to drink it, and I can't taste anything. And I sit there for like 30 minutes. I'm like, I can't taste a single drop of my lips in my throat. And it's like, well, you think I have no control over you? Like, and I'm hearing this voice, and it's like, I can make you breathe when I want to. And as soon as I heard that, I couldn't breathe. I started suffocating. I started choking. I can make you speechless if I want to. And I tried talking. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. And I remember running, just like, I want this. Like, this can't be hell. Like, this can't be where I'm at. And finally, this voice told me, "You want this to stop?" I'm like, yes, please. Like, I wanted to. You know what you need to do. You want this to stop. And I'm like, what? Like, what? It's like, kill yourself. And I'm like, kill myself. It's like, yep. And I'll make it stop. If you kill yourself, not only will your family be happy, but your brothers won't have to live with you anymore. They won't have to look at you anymore. They won't have to have a disappointment of a brother. Your mom, she'll be so much better without you in your life. And your dad, imagine you being gone. He won't have to remember that he has a son for a disappointment. And I'm just there, and I'm like, I'm like, okay, like I want this to stop, and if everyone's life is gonna get better, I'm done. Like, so I remember I had a work tie, and I had this little rack in my room. So I have a little, what's it called? I don't have a closet in my. I put a bar in my bedroom as a closet, and it was pretty sturdy, And I had a work tie, and I tied it around, and I held it in my hands, And I was planning on just hanging myself with that tie. And I remember telling myself, like, this is it. The one thing I told myself I would never do, that I would never be weak enough to do, I'm gonna do it. You know, I ended up falling to my knees, and I can remember hearing my dad's voice again, inviting me to church. You know, saying, "Son, like, it'd be a good time. It'd be a good time to see you. You know, we miss you." And I was so mad. I was like, he was right. Imagine if I had just looked past my stupid pride, my bitterness, and all I wanted to do was hear his voice. All I wanted to do was tell him I'm sorry. All I wanted to do was say anything to him. So I got my phone, and I remember I was going to text him something, and the voice was like, "What do you remember where you're at, right? How are you going? Nothing's going to get through." So all I did was text him. I said, "Dad, I love you," and I said it to him, and I started crying because I knew the next thing I was going to do was I was going to hang myself. And I started crying. Not once did I pray or call to God this whole time, because I was just certain that he abandoned me, you know, that he left, that he had stopped loving me a long time ago. And I closed my eyes and just wept like a baby, you know. But I opened my eyes, and I remember opening my eyes and having this clarity that I've never had before. All that, all these hallucinations, everything it was gone. I feel like I just closed my eyes and literally was just crying about what I was going on around me. And granted, I was surrounded by this darkness, by this infestation. And as soon as I opened my eyes again, it was gone in a matter of seconds. And I was so taken back. I was like, what would happen? Like, that's usually not how the whatever with the second thought, that's not how it just doesn't cut like that. And I'm literally on my knees, and I'm just like, what do I do? Like, everything's gone. It's quiet. Like, and I hear it. And this is where, like, I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint it, but I tell people, I'm always like, man, they're gonna think I'm crazy, you know, but because I just went through a whole crazy this, but like, I was sober. I was completely like, I was not hallucinating. It was nothing anymore. And I remember on my knees, I heard this voice, this distinct voice, clear as day. It wasn't it wasn't like a big special effect. It wasn't like, you know, something crazy. It just said, get up. And I got up, and I was there like, okay, like, this voice I just heard that said, get up, was the most, it was the most calmest. It had no, like, it didn't feel like there was an authority to it, but it wasn't like big. It was nothing. It was just this voice that just said, get up. And it was not on my own. So I responded to it, and I got up. And then I was there, and I'm like literally in my room, like, and then it says move. And I move. I'm like, move where? Like, move, like, and the only thing I can look at is that my door was open after coming back from in my room. So I walk into the hallway. I'm like, what do I do now? Like, voice, like this, like, I'm hearing you. And then it said, look. And I look around. I'm like, okay, I'm looking. And I see my brother's bedroom door open. This is like 2:30 in the morning, you know. This whole experience was about 6 hours, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. And so 2:30 in the morning, this bedroom's door is open. My brother's bedroom door is open. And I'm like, I see a faint light in his room. And I open the door, and three of my brothers are in that room. And one of them is awake. And I'm like, hey, I won't say his name, but I'm like, what are you still doing awake? It's like and he's like, I can't sleep. And like, what do you mean you can't sleep? And he's like, I'm afraid. I'm like, what are you afraid of? He's like, I think I'm gonna die. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I just had this episode. Why is he having these thoughts? And that voice came back. That demonic voice was like, it's like, you were the only thing keeping me from your family. So as soon as I got you, why wouldn't I take the whole family? There's nothing left for them. I got you, so why wouldn't I take them? And when I heard that, I snapped. I was like, no way. Like, no, I'm done. I grabbed my brother, we ran to the kitchen, and I get my phone, and I tried calling my dad. And it's like I said, it's like 2:30 something in the morning, and he doesn't answer, this first call. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, Dad, please, like, wake up, man. And I'm like, so we're sitting at the kitchen table, and I call my dad again, no answer. I'm just like, please, like, just like, am I really? And the voice was like, where do you think you are? Why? And I'm like, no, I'm not there. Like, call him one more time. And he finally answers, and I'm afraid, I'm afraid what's about to happen. But I just told my dad, it's me. I'm with my brother. I'm with my brother. Please pray for us. Like, something is going on. And he prays for us. We do this in his prayer. I talk to my brother, and I go ahead and send him to go back to bed. And then I finally, I get on the phone with my dad. And that moment when the son goes to the father, and it's like, I don't deserve to be called your son anymore. I am on the phone with my dad, and I'm just like, Dad, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm such a disappointment. I'm just telling him everything. I'm like, everything. I'm telling you every single thing. I'm like, I'm just exposing myself. I'm just like, like, I'm sorry that I'm your son. I'm sorry that you had to put up with me. And like, and he just stops me. He's like, son, and he's like, son, I love you, and I've always loved you. And when I heard those words, it was like, it wasn't, I wasn't just hearing that from my dad. I was hearing that from God, like, this whole time, through that pain, through my suffering, the darkness I was going through, God was there, man. He was there, and he never left me. He wasn't disappointed. He was upset. He was sad, but he never stopped loving me. And when I heard those words, I was telling, God's love is what saved my life. I realized that just this self-reflection, like, it was me. I was the one who kept these lies, who kept this pain. And at that moment, it took me a second of all that to be released. And like, my dad prayed with me again. And, from that moment, I mean, it's been a year and a half, from then. But yeah, that May 1st.
So,
Yeah.
wow. That was crazy.
You could say that again.
So, we know it's the episode's getting a little long, guys, but we wanted to end this episode off with Jonathon talking about his life now with God. He mentioned that his many things have been happening in his life. He's been blessed, and Jonathon, why don't you talk about that for a little bit? Ever since you got saved, what has happened in your life?
Yeah, I mean, from the start of that, I knew that my life was changed. It had just changed for the rest of but I had no idea what was in store for me. I gave my life to God, and I told myself, I do not care anymore. I do not care. I'm like, God, you have full authority and full control. I'm done with this. I had no idea what was in store, man. I had no idea. You know, I became invested though. I became addicted to this. You know, there's people say that, you know, you hear, oh yeah, I hear voices in my head. You don't understand you hear voices into your head until they stop. And I'm telling you, like it was, I mean, I was saved, man. I mean, when we're walking outside, I've been in foreign countries. I talk to people all the time, you know, I've been in places that only 1% of the American population has been. I've seen sunsets and sunrises from all over the world. The first time I remember walking down to church one day and looking at the sun and seeing the clouds, and I cried like a baby because it was the most beautiful thing in the world, you know. Oh, you were on this high? No, man. It was like I was given this new pair of eyes, man. Like this new mindset, this new idea. But I mean, I had no clue. I had no clue. I just went in full throttle, you know. Told my dad I wanted everything. I mean, I don't whatever God has in store, I want it, you know. You know, from then, like, you know, even you know, it will kick my butt is everything I told you with your brother, you know. Seeing people who never had to leave, who didn't have to have my experience, you know, seeing people motivated Sammy and Colton, like, you know, I was like, okay, I need to kick it into high gear. I need to, like, these men never need an excuse to leave God's side. And I can't make excuses for being redeemed, you know. And, you know, there's three areas, things I wanted to hit was redeem, restore, and renewal, you know. Where redeeming, like, you know, it's not like I was just new skin was put on my body, you know, and I was just walking around with a new face. But I was changed. I was totally changed, you know. And it didn't start with this whole like, oh, you know, like no, I was like, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not cussing anymore. I'm not doing any of that. I'm done with it, you know. And like I went cold turkey, you know, and I just totally haven't touched it. You know, I've been sober since and all that. Like doesn't, you know, it's not like it's nothing. No, it's like I'm done, you know. And my past, it just doesn't define me. You know, and I struggle with it. I struggle with this condemnation through my relationship with God. I struggle with this idea that I got saved too late, right? That I was like, oh, I'm 26 years old when I got saved, and I'm like, how am I going to catch up? You know, the youth that I went to church before when I was younger, 17, 16, they all have family, they all have kids, you know, how like, but my parents, my Cynthia, my dad told me something, you know, it's like, Jonathan, God renews and he restores. God will restore that time. And then it didn't click with me. It didn't click with me at all. And it wasn't until, you know, just recently where, I mean, if I can say this, you know, I'm engaged now, you know, I'm engaged to, and she's gonna get mad that I say anything about her on here, but to an amazing woman of God, a jewel that I do not deserve one bit, you know. God put in me a destiny, a path that not that I didn't deserve, but that was always there. This pastor, Mauro Sanchez, gave me this description one time. When God holds that blessing above us, He never pulls it away from us, or you know, or teases us with it. It's there. It's always there, and we are going to we're going to reach for it. Obviously, we're going to want to grab it. Is it the problem? Is that if we leave, God doesn't leave or walk away. The blessing remains there, man. It stays there, and until God, you know, He knows we're ready. You know, and He sees us. He sees, you know, He loves us. He's never been disappointed. He doesn't come out with the, oh my God, it's this guy again, you know? Like, God is just, He wants to open that blessing. He wants to open His hand for us, you know? And He's done that for me, you know, in the year and a half. The privilege I've had just to be a part of the youth, you know, the MC, like, you know, for the both for recent concerts, you know, like what an absolute privilege that is, an absolute blessing that has been, you know, and you know, and not to obviously not to make this too long, but it's it has been a year and a half. In 2 more months, it'll be 2 years. When God has done for me in that matter of time, he what he has done for me in that time has been more than anything that has ever happened in my life. You know, these are my best days, man. This last year and a half have been the best days of my life, with true happiness, with true love in my heart. You know, the redemption that God has given me, and what He's allowed me to, how to be that. Sometimes it's weird telling people my testimony, man. But when I've tell people sometimes they just need to hear a fraction of it, and they're like, God can do that. I'm like, yeah. I mean, look, I'm a walking, stinking miracle, man. And I mean, that's what we all are. We're miracles, man. I mean, I know Rafa was saying something earlier about his father, but I mean, Rafa, I mean, you're a miracle, bro. I mean, like, Wyatt, you have an inheritance beyond your belief. You know, we are miracles, man. When God is in our lives, we are miracles every single day. And you know, not that we have to go through that experience to really know. Like, God is not how God works. God just needs us to have that brokenness for Him, you know. And I just was tough cookie, man. It was a hard nut to crack, you know. But when we truly are broken in front of Him, when He restores us, man, and shapes us into what we have the potential to be, that's when we really see that, you know. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, like I said, this last year and a half has been amazing.
How long have you been engaged again?
Huh?
How long
What?
have you been engaged?
Oh, I was engaged again. No, I mean,
My bad.
I mean, even in that time, like, you know, I had a brother come up to me once and tell me, Jonathan, God is going to expedite your life. Expedite. I'm like, what? But I took it to heart, man. And yeah, I've been engaged since, I want to say, I got engaged on New Year's. Well, December 31st, you know. But the thing is, like, you know, what God has done with me, and in that person alone, like, you know, I know a lot of PKs or a lot of kids in general, you know, we get to a point where, you know, oh, who we going to, and that's a whole different topic, you know, with finding that person. But God gave me someone because He loves me, not because I didn't deserve it. I do deserve it. He loves me, and He wanted to bless me, you know, and He has truly blessed me 100%. Trust me, it's not like I enjoy talking about it. I mean,
Yeah.
the first couple weeks after that happened, I was traumatized. I was like, I mean, like, that really, it put the fear in me. But then it was like, okay, I don't want the fear of hell in me. I want the fear of God in me,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it was, you know, really, really trying to get in touch with what happened that day, you know. The funny thing, the first youth rally we had, the one
Yes.
Rise Up one,
Yes.
that was based off of that first word that I was told, get up. It was rise, you know, rise up. Like, I use that in reference to like, you know, like, God is telling us to stand up, and that's the first thing He told me to do, was to stand up, you know. Whatever that was, the Holy Ghost, or, you know, I mean, you know, everything. I mean, I'm just glad I listened to that voice that day, you know, like, you know, yeah.
Well, you guys, thank you for joining us and for watching with us. It was incredible testimony. Thank you to Jonathan for coming on and sharing his testimony. I just, gosh, it's crazy just thinking about it. But make sure you share, like, subscribe. If you're on Spotify, follow us. If you enjoy this content, follow us on Instagram. We'll have the name right here. It's like a ton of underscores and dots. We'll have the link in the description below. Visit our website for merch options. Check out our merch. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you guys for staying with us.
So, you know, you hear my testimony and whatnot, and it's what it is, man. I'm not going to say that we don't need to have that experience. We don't. We don't need to put ourselves in that situation. What I want you, what I hope was heard is that God is persistent, man. God loves you and cares for you. And He is right there in those darkest times. He is right there in this pain. And then just because you have left God, just because you think that He's not there, He's there. He remembers you. He knew you before you were made in the womb, man. The fact that we have a God in that place. I had a father, I did, and he loved me with all his heart. But I took that bitterness. And if you listen to this and you have that bitterness, you have that anger, it may not be against your father, but with your mother, your friend, anyone, but you're putting it on God. And I'm telling you, God cares for you. He loves you. And it's by His mercy and grace that you get to stand there. You get to be and you get to hold on to that bitterness. But He's calling you. And He's searching for you. Every corner, every place you can go. He does not leave your sight. So if you're here and you don't have God in your heart, or even if you know God is there, but you have rejected Him, you have pushed Him away, and you don't see that there's a point of self-return, I'm telling you, there's a place right now. We're going to pray, and I ask that you repeat after me. I'm going to say, Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you forgive me for my sins, for my bitterness, for my anger, my hate. God, you have been there in my darkest times, in my darkest moments. You know me, and you know my secrets. There is nothing hidden from you. You love me, Father, and I ask that you re-enter into my heart. You show me your love and your grace. Forgive me, Father, as we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Hopefully that went through and understand if you're in that place, you're in that dark hole, there's a light. And God, like I said, God is waiting to open that blessing. He's waiting to see you step in that destiny. And when we do, it's all smiles, man. It's all love. This is by His grace and His glory that God redeems, He restores, and He renews. Thank you.
And something significant I remember from your testimony that you told at the youth rally was just a picture of how much Jonathan was into drinking.
Bloopers! What a perfect time.
Okay, just give him a second there. Just going to the store or something.
Mr. and Mrs. Taylor.
Brought to you by,
Oh, yeah.
this podcast is sponsored by Rockstar.
Hey, how's it?
So,
Amen.
yeah. Wow. So, can you hear my mom in the background?
Yep.
Okay.
It's good. It's good.